to see if there's anything going on with the chat, you're welcome to. But I'll be, we'll be having a discussion here. In fact, I'll put it up here as well. And there. All right, and now you definitely need to lower the volume. Perfect. That's so interesting. So you saw it come right up. On mine, it's still showing like an ad or something. I don't know why. But okay, that's cool. So, folks, we are going to chat now about one of the next quest lines, or the next quest line that was opened up. I know a lot of you saw this yesterday. I kind of mentioned it a little bit, but I want to really get into the nuts and bolts of why this is going to be important, okay? So, first off, what you will see initially is only going to be intro and prepping for the journey, right? Now, the prepping for the journey quest is going to have you essentially create your blog. Your blog shouldn't have your full name or anything like that with it. If you have a gamer tag, that would be perfect. Call it something like Alex's game design portfolio or something to that effect. The main idea here is that a lot of the assignments, you're going to be blogging your response, and actually that will then go, be available to the real world, which I think is really great for you to create for an authentic audience. We're starting it with our game reviews, and I'll explain why that's a great project to start that with. But when we make our games, you'll be also blogging your experience, sharing the process with people and all that. And when I come across one of your blogs that I really like, I love nothing more than to promote it and tweet it out and share it with my community, because I think they like to see some of the stuff that we're doing in here. Okay, so after you get to the prepping the journey, it's going to open up, not all this, but it's going to open up a number of these game review quests. Okay, so in first period, I had an interesting discussion with the class, and what I came to notice immediately, and maybe it'll be different here, is that there was some confusion around the idea here. So here's the general idea. You're going to be playing a variety of games and analyzing or breaking them down and writing good reviews of them. So think like you're a game reviewer for IGN or GameSpot. Anybody look up reviews on either IGN, GameSpot? Yeah? So they're well written, right? They get into a lot of things about a game. Now, my first question for all of you is, why would I want you to take valuable class time to play, sort of break down and analyze, and write good comprehensive reviews of games as part of a game design class? Any thoughts come to mind? There was a similar thing. I thought it was in first period that everybody just didn't have their first cup of coffee yet. But why would we have an activity in this class be like, hey, let's play different types of games. Let's really dig in. Okay, so you might be able to design a better game. Why would reviewing and analyzing and breaking down games help you with that?
Like, you can see elements of games that people put in their games, and then you can take that elements and put in your game.
Awesome. Do you know what, when we talk about those elements, do you know what those are kind of referred to in a game typically?
Challenges.
Sort of, or are you familiar with the term game mechanics? Okay, these are all terms that we're going to be using. So listen, because these are like legit, real, like if I had a vocabulary quiz in here, game mechanics would be one of them. So game mechanics are like what is done in these games. Like, how do these games operate? Like, what makes the game tick? What does the player do in the game? So some typical game mechanics. Do you know what some typical game mechanics might be in a game? Anybody play any RPGs? No? Yeah? What is a typical game mechanic in an RPG? And it actually extends to many other types of games. Leveling up. So experience points that you earn might be a game mechanic. Completing quests is a game mechanic. I seem to be hooked on this game right now called Farm Together. Anybody ever play it? Kind of reminds me of a little Farmville. So in that, they're all, like, you're farming. And as you're farming, you're making money. So there's that scoring mechanic. You're leveling up all sorts of things. Like, you level up your certain type of crop. You level up your player. You complete quests, that are part of the storyline that also like level up certain things. So it has all that, which kind of keeps you in a sense almost grinding, but as part of the game, right? So that's one XP and leveling up. What are some other game mechanics? Like if you think of like Mario, Super Mario Brothers, what would be a game mechanic in Super Mario Brothers? What's that? Power-ups, awesome. What else? I mean, on a real simple level, the platform game, like of running, jumping, and all that, is a game mechanic. Some games employ that, some don't, right? Now, so we're going to be looking at these games, and we're really going to be breaking them down. One thing I find very interesting about the game industry, anybody play any of the Blizzard games? Anybody? Nobody plays any games by Blizzard? They're my favorite game company in the universe.
Wait,
Overwatch. Okay, so Overwatch. Anybody play... So Overwatch is a first-person shooter, right? Somehow it's gained great popularity, right? Is it the only first-person shooter out there? No. Blizzard, and I apologize... Oh, Andrew Peterson raises his hand. What's up, Andrew? Oh, you were raising your hand that you know Blizzard games, maybe. Me too. Okay. So, Overwatch. Like I said, not the first-person shooter by any means. What is Blizzard notorious for? Anyone? I mean, they make great games, but do they make really original games? No. What do they generally do? What's that? What do they generally do? Anybody ever play Warcraft 2, World of Warcraft, StarCraft? These are all games of genres that already existed. Blizzard has this wonderful ability to what? Make them better. I think that's been their rise to the top, has been that they take existing game ideas and they really probably break it down and say, how are we going to make the user interface for this better? How are we going to make this game better? Okay, that's kind of their thing, I think. And then you take games like, anybody play Heroes of the Storm? Is it? Okay, well, we have a naysayer on Heroes of the Storm, but what kind of game is that? Anybody know what the genre of game that is? Heroes of the Storm? No? Anybody know what kind of, or genre of game League of Legends or Dota is?
I'm seeing Dota.
Yeah, do you know what kind of game, what that's called? Okay, that's a MOBA, or a multiplayer online battle arena game, right? There are a number of them. Now, the funny thing that you say that about Blizzard, about Heroes, I think is kind of ironic too, because not Heroes of the Storm, but Dota, or Defense of the Agents, which is a hugely popular MOBA that's used in competitive gaming and all, that came from a mod of like I think from, I want to say Warcraft 3 or StarCraft, but using their editor to create a game based on that game, kind of like how you guys are going to make games in Minecraft. You might mod or make campaigns or maps in StarCraft. They gave the fan base a level editor or game engine to create games in their environment, and whole genres like MOBAs came out of that, okay? So again, this is just kind of getting us to this idea that we're going to be breaking down, analyzing all these factors. Now, one of the quests you'll do early on, potentially, is Circa 1980, where we're going to look at classic arcade games. I give you links to some here. We also have the NES Classic, the SNES Classic, the Retro Pi. So there's access to so many different, like you could play the original Zelda if you want to review that. You could play, there's so many options. I give a link here to an article, a review of Pac-Man, so you can at least see a sample of, what is somebody writing up when they write up a legit review of something, okay? And this is even a simple review. Yours are going to be at least this in depth and stuff. Now, these are the things you're going to be looking at. I'm just going to chat about this a little, and then some of you will get to start playing and all. So here we go. So down here, it talks about what we're looking at and how we're going to break these down. So these are the kinds of things. Now, I don't want you just writing like as if you're just answering my questions. When you write a blog post review, you're going to be writing like a reviewer. You can use some of these as headings, but then you're going to write a well-written paragraph to follow it. You're going to include screenshots that you're going to find of the games. basically, when people read blog posts, they want the information chunked in readable amounts. So don't write this huge long paragraph. That's the first thing I'll give feedback and send back and say you've got to fix. When you do screenshots, in my class, it becomes a common thing that for whatever reason, people like to write their whole article and then put 10 screenshots at the bottom. That's not going to engage the reader. The reader wants the screenshots. When you read like a review or a blog post, you want them to be kind of fit in within, right? And you want to kind of get a sense for, oh, this is cool. Like I see this graphic, it kind of breaks up the reading a little and all that. The storyline or narrative. Now, even with a game like Pac-Man, you're going to talk a little bit about the storyline. Does anybody know the storyline in Pac-Man? It's like a classic love story, really, I believe. If you notice, anybody ever play Pac-Man and see the different cut scenes in Pac-Man? Well, he's doing his thing. There's one called The Chase where he's chasing, I think, after Ms. Pac-Man. I think he's the whole game revolves around this story of him trying to get Ms. Pac-Man or something. So you'll build that in a little. Now, a classic arcade game doesn't have to have the most rich storyline, but it's good to still look at what that might be. Now, gameplay, and replayability is huge. A game like Pac-Man is so interesting to me because the actual original Pac-Man, every level or every board looks the exact same. At least in Ms. Pac-Man, they changed them up a little. But yet, have you ever played Pac-Man?
Yeah.
Have you played it and then wanted to replay it and replay it? What about that game makes you want to keep replaying it?
That's fun.
Fun, but there's more to it sort of than fun. What are you trying to do?
Beat your old record.
Beat your old record, get a high score. Classic arcade games are so great because they're so simple, yet look at how much we're going to still put into them, right? Aesthetics, graphics, and animation. Again, Pac-Man, by today's standards, it's not great graphics, but for what it is, are the graphics appropriate? Are they inviting? Do they make you want to play the game? Sound we'll talk about also, which is also funny when we go back to these 8-bit games because the sound is pretty minimalistic. Game mechanics, again, I really want you to focus on that because that's where you're going to later, when you make games, you're going to, let's see, somebody else says hello. Hello. So when it comes to game mechanics, these are going to be things that ultimately you're going to want to put in your games. Now, it's interesting that we're working with MakeCode Arcade first, because if you do this circa 1980 quest and then go back and make your first real arcade game, one option is going to be to recreate an existing one. So you might recreate Pac-Man or Frogger. Other options are going to be to make, a whole new arcade experience game for your own. Scoring mechanisms. In other words, how is score handled? Again, classic arcade games are great. It's like you score points, you have lives. That's about the extent of it usually. In an RPG, the scoring might be in that XP and leveling up. Winning, losing scenario is there. Some RPGs, maybe getting to the highest level is a quasi, winning experience. In Minecraft, I guess, defeating the Ender Dragon, right? In Pac-Man, I don't know that there's really a winning scenario. Definitely a losing scenario. And one of the other things I want you to think about, and I have this in here under gameplay and replayability, this concept of ramp of difficulty. This is another term that I want you to consider and think about. The ramp of difficulty, okay? Think of every game, like basically games that you really enjoy, and it adds to that replayability. If a game starts kind of easy, it allows the player to build some level of confidence. If it stays too easy, and we've noticed this in MakeCode Arcade, if you haven't made it more difficult and you have a 3-second timer and you have to get the pizza, and you can always get it within 3 seconds, you're going to stop playing because you're going to not have that ramp of difficulty. Once you've exhausted the idea that, there's no challenge, you're going to stop. If you made that game where after you get 100 points, maybe it goes to 2.5 seconds, then you're starting to make it increasingly more difficult after you've given the player that feeling of confidence, and that's kind of what you want, right? So eventually, that challenge is going to grow with the player. The player's going to want to keep playing because they want to keep being like, oh, I know I could beat it if I play a little more. You know what I mean? So even Pac-Man gets more challenging each level and stuff. All right? So that's the gist of it. You guys will start, probably today, a lot of you will start playing games to review them. The game reviews will be sent back if they're not thorough and if I don't feel like I would want to share it with somebody out there to read and get a sense of your review. So really give that a lot of thought because that's laying the foundation for what we're going to be doing in making our own games. As you start thinking critically about what makes a good and bad game, that's kind of what we're looking at. Got it? All right, cool. So get to it and make good things happen. Okay, thanks for everybody who was watching, and we'll be back. And, don't forget to follow and subscribe and, do all that good stuff to make us feel good.